Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make a really fun gatefold Halloween card. So I'm going to show you a few things first. We are going to use Scary Cute for this, which also has a coordinating die set. I believe it's called Scary Dies, but I could be wrong. But I'll show you a little bit more about that in the inside, but I wanted to show you this paper that I use here. So I have to tell you, as you all know, I do the paper share. Sometimes there's papers that I love, like love. And sometimes there's papers where I'm kind of like, I don't really care one way or the other. And the black and white designs was one of those papers. However, I will tell you, I've used almost an entire pack of this for these Halloween cards specifically. So you can see it's black, white, and gray design. So it's got polka dots, like a harlequin, a stripe, a crazy stripe. So there's this like thin and then wider stripe. There's also a regular stripe, a zigzag, and a star paper. So we're going to actually use different papers than I used for this one here. So this does have a little belly band that slides off, and this is what the inside of the card looks like. You can make it as fancy or not. This side is the black and gray. This one actually is black and white, and then I added ink to it. So I'm going to show you how to make that. The belly band I used Mango Melody for, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well, which is really easy. So you could totally dress this up with the Best Witches stamp set, but I decided to use Scary Cute, Scary Silhouettes. Well, that's close enough. So Scary Cute, Scary Silhouettes. There are great ideas in here. If you do buy the dies and the stamp set, you will save 10% as a bundle. So there's a couple other cute ideas. I thought this card was just absolutely adorable and also uses one of my other favorite products. Where is it? The mesh metallic ribbon, which is so adorable. Absolutely adorable. I might actually add that little piece because it's just laying here. You could also totally do this with the Bewitching bundle. But one other thing I wanted to show you is if you flip back here to page 77, if there's a bundle, it will give you one additional card idea. So maybe Halloween's not your thing, or maybe somebody gave you the stamp set, but you could even make it as a cute little kind of love card. And this background piece here actually is completely covered with that metallic mesh ribbon. Coincidentally, I did not even know that before I just looked at this. I just figured I would show you guys. But so you can make this into a little cute Valentine's card, or like a house card, a welcome card. You know, it doesn't have to be Halloween. It could be something totally different, but always check the back where they have the bundles. They give you some extra ideas. Of course, you can always check YouTube and Pinterest because there's tons of ideas on there as well. But I'm going to show you how to make a super easy gatefold card. So I am starting with a full sheet of cardstock so you understand. So I have a strip of Mango Melody, and this is just a little strip. It just is from the edge. So this is just an 8.5 piece. It doesn't have to be a full piece to make the belly band. So this is just a scrap. And then for our card, we're going to make one that is going to be 5.5. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and cut this to 5.5. Cut it at 5.5. All right, so this is another piece you could use for a different card. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn it to the long side, so the 8.5-inch side, and you're going to score it at 2 1/8, which is just 2 little tick marks right here. So 2 1/8, okay, and that's it. So we are probably going to need to do a little bit of cutting here. I'm not sure, depending on what we do, we might do it for the sentiment, but that's it. So you're going to take your card, you're going to fold it in like that. You want to make sure that you have your bone folder so you get a really nice crisp edge, okay, just like so. Then you're going to take your other piece and you're going to fold it just like that, and then just reinforce. And I have never ever done a gatefold card differently than this once I learned it this way, because no matter how I scored it or took my time, there was either overlap or there was a big gap in the middle, but this is pretty much it. So then I have my 2 pieces of DSP. So again, I told you I had the black and white, so I'm going to use the black and gray, and my cutter still needs to be replaced. I'm trying to get every cent out of it that I can. So if you do have little ridges, I just usually use my bone folder just to smooth it out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this piece on here. This is cut at 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. So I'm just going to put some liquid glue. I find that I use liquid glue a lot because if you need to adjust something and maybe wiggle it to fit on where you have it. If you need to wiggle it a little bit, you can do that with liquid glue. Can't do that with adhesive. Doesn't work the same. So also, I'm just going to grab a little scrappy piece here. I have the zigzag. So I could have used this side, but I figured I'm going to use this side instead. So I'm going to grab a blender brush and my pumpkin pie ink. Now, one thing I will tell you is when you use your blending brushes, it does tend to take up a lot of ink. So you may need to re-ink it, but it's why we buy re-inkers, right? So I'm just going to add some color. You can make it lighter or darker at one end. And I really want this to be dark. So I'm just going to re-ink it again. And so it's pretty uniform color, but I want it to just be darker. And you want to be careful. This paper is not quite as thick as other DSPs. I don't know if it's just because of the black and white paper particularly or what. So I'm just kind of hitting a couple areas that are a little bit darker. So you can see I have a little darker kind of going on a diagonal there. All right, and I'm just gonna wipe this. Then when you are finished with it, you just kind of keep brushing it. You can rinse this out, but you don't need to. I tend to keep it in the same color scheme, so I've never had a problem with bleeding from one color to another. So we have this. I'm gonna let this dry just for a moment while we work on our other piece that we're gonna do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a piece of, I feel like, no, I was gonna say, I thought I used Granny Apple Green, but I think I used Parakeet Party. Yep. So I'm just going to grab a little scrap. Got a piece big enough for that? No, not quite. Might have to use a actual piece. Like there's one in here somewhere. Or not. So I'm just going to pull this out. And we're going to, just going to cut this in half. 5 1/2. And then I'll cut the half in half. And then I'll cut that half in half because we only really need a little piece. It's big enough to do that. So I'll just do this do like 2. In case I need to use this for something else. Let me do 2 1/4 just to be on the safe side. One of the 2 of those should be big enough. All right, so then what we're gonna do is we're gonna ink up our Frankie. I love Frankenstein. Let me see what this looks like because I'm not going to use this piece if it's too small. Yep, I should have gone with the other one. That's okay. We're going to use this. Just kind of eyeball, and I'm going to use VersaFine because it's a really good black ink. This is a solid image, which sometimes can be a trick. So I want to tell you 2 things. And let me show you my little scrap piece here. When you're stamping this, or inking it, I should say. Oops. So you see you ink it, and it's got a little bit of lining there. It's mostly because it's a solid image. So if you give it a twist, sometimes that'll help. Okay, you will give it a twist, and you stamp and hold. That will help a little bit more. But I want to show you one other thing. I just want to clean this off so you get the full gist of what I'm doing here. There we go. So if you take some Versamark, and it doesn't matter what it looks like, and you ink up your dude, so it kind of gets a sticky, you can see it's got a little bit of a shine to it, and then you ink it in black, it will ink way better. So you can see, not holding it very long, holding it, but Versamark and holding it. So you do still, now I would not go directly into black ink with my Versamark. So I'm definitely going to clean it. But if you have a little bit of color on there, it's not going to transfer to whatever you're stamping. But with black, it's always better to be on the safe side. So I'm going to once again just ink this with Versamark. Okay. Then I'm going to ink it. I'm going to pull this over here with the VersaFine. That's Onyx Black ink. This is not a Stampin' Up ink, but I really like this ink. It's got a really crisp edge to detail. So that's what I'm going to do. Other thing I'm going to do really quickly is I think I'm going to do Cebu and Scary On. Yeah, and I'm just going to stamp this. I have to have a scrap of white here somewhere. Okay, and I'm just going to do that with the black ink as well. It's really great for details. I wish Stampin' Up! Did carry that ink because it really is awesome. Put those on the side. All right, so I'm going to give this a moment to dry because I'm going to do something to it. Same with this. I'm going to give that a moment to dry. In the meantime, we're going to stamp some bats onto our belly band. I'm not going to really worry about using VersaFine ink on this because it's really just a belly band. So, and that's way bigger than you would want to use, but I'm just going to use Memento. And let me just see what this looks like because we use this a lot in class, so it could be, it's a little dry. So I have my re-inker, which I need to order another one, but in case you've never seen this before, when you give it a shake, this is a Memento Tuxedo Black ink refill. Whenever I buy ink from Stampin' Up, I always buy the refill at the same time. That way, just in case something ever were to happen, you can refill your ink. Also, they're great for not necessarily black, but using them to watercolor with, lots of other things. So I'm going to take my bats and I'm just going to randomly stamp. It doesn't really matter. You don't want it too close to either edge because we are going to glue it underneath of this. But we'll put some bats across here, that little one, the big one. That's good enough. Okay. All right. So this also does need to dry. So in between those things, we could do inside panel, but I'm going to skip that today. You can use your imagination on what it is you want to do with that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of the panel that we added the ink to. Again, we used pumpkin pie. Just gonna put that on there. Okay, so again, you're gonna need 4 by 5 1/4. You can put that on the inside. So belly bands. Now, when you make a belly band, all it has to be is big enough that you can add something and connect it, which is what this little dude here is gonna do. So if you look behind here, you can see there's a gap. It's not fully connected. So that's how we're going to connect it. So you're going to take your belly band and basically just wrap it. I always make sure you hit it with your bone folder and then bring it around. You want to make sure that they actually line up. That's the only thing. I could add some more bats here, but we're going to center this over here, so we should be fine with that. So this is going to be on the side. We still do need our words, but again, we're letting them dry a little bit. So I'm going to do 2 other things. So for our trees, you actually have to die cut both of these together, and then we're going to use this to die cut Frank. Okay, so I originally experimented with adding some bats underneath there in the back, but you couldn't really see them. So if you wanted to put some bats, you definitely need to make sure you put them on there low. So I'm going to grab a piece of black cardstock. See if I can just grab a little scrap piece and let's see. That is just a little too small. If I can find another scrap that I have here. If not, yeah, we're just gonna have to pull out a piece. So I'm going to, you can see I've done the same thing for many other Halloween cards with adhesive, but this one we're not going to use adhesive. So I'm going to show you. It's a little bit, easier to do. I originally did design this card in black cardstock, but it was just a little bit too dark. So I'm going to grab a little scrap piece. Same thing again. I'm going to just cut this in half. Cut the half in half. All right, here comes Mr. Noisy. So I'm going to try to wrap this up. We are getting close to bedtime here. What happens when you're trying to get 15,000 things done, right? And it gets dark early. Throws everything off. So when you line these up, you want to have just a little bit of a gap around, because if you just die cut the trees, it will only die cut the trees. You won't have anything to actually cut it out with, which you could use, but you do need this second layer here to make the actual layer to it. So I'm going to run this through the die cut machine. Even though I have my magnetic platform, just because this is so close, I like to tape it. Just makes me feel better. All right, and then, so here's this piece. So you have your little layers. And then we're going to go back and die cut just Frankie. And I want to kind of keep this so this is pretty close to the ground. Feet on the ground, and then run this through. Okay. All right, so there is Frankie. And so you see this part only has the die cutting on here. It's not on the actual edge, which is why you need both of those together. All right, so you also have lots of other little bats in there too. So if you wanted to die cut some additional bats. So this will pop out. And then you just have to pop out your couple little pieces. Pretty simple to glue this on. That's why I didn't do adhesive sheet on it, because it does have a pretty nice rim around it. All right, so the other thing we're going to do, I just want to grab my scrap, is I'm going to set this on here. I'm going to grab my Mossy Meadow, and I'm just going to add, I say kind of was like a little bit of like a Halloween fog. So I'm just going to add, this is a pretty dark ink, so you don't want too much. Kind of like a fog. And then you won't see too much of this at the top, but I'm still going to just bring just a little bit. There you go. That's good enough. Okay. So there's that. So we're going to add a little bit of liquid glue right on the edge there and just put this on. Then all we have to do is just add it to the belly band. And like I said, you can decorate the inside however you want. This would also, whoopsie, this would also make a really nice Halloween birthday card. If you happen to know someone who has a Halloween birthday, I'm sure they would think this was a great birthday card. I have a lot of friends who have birthdays near Halloween, but nobody on Halloween. So there's that. You could put glue under here. You don't really have to though. But the other thing I did was add just some Wink of Stella kind of to the trees. So I'm not squeezing it. I just gave it a shake and whatever's on there, because you don't want it to be super wet. I find that with Wink of Stella, once I've squeezed it and gotten it wet the first time, I don't really have to do it again very often. And I'm going to, just for the heck of it, just add a little bit to him. And the only other thing you could add if you wanted to is maybe just with your Mossy Meadow, if you happen to have the brush tip, just add a little bit of ground for him to be walking on. There you go. Doesn't have to be specific or anything. All right, so I'm going to trim this. And put this on with some liquid glue. Oops. This VersaFine is a pigment-based ink, so it is very similar to Versa Mark. So you definitely want to make sure you let it dry. You live in a very arid area, you should be fine. But I will find that sometimes here, specifically when it's humid, it's really, really hard to get it to dry. So you could put these on with dimensionals, but I'm going to just do it with liquid glue. So I'm just going to put just a little bit here. That way I have it ready. Okay. So we have our base. Oops, that was the other card. We have our base here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue here, and then I'm just pressing it down with my fingers, and then I'm holding this down just like so. You just kind of want it to be centered. You definitely want to give it a few seconds to grip. Okay, and I'm going to move this up kind of where I want it. Oops, lost a piece. And then we're going to put this here. And I'm going to grab my reverse tweezers for this. And I'm going to keep these all on the same side. Like that. And I thought, you know what I said? I was going to put my, my little piece here, and I forgot. I intended to put that on somewhere, so maybe I'll end up putting it on the inside. Now, you could put it on underneath of here, so you just want to make sure your belly band slides on and off. You could put it underneath of here, but I'm almost afraid it would kind of get stuck in the card when they were putting it on and off. So if you were going to do that, I would put it maybe underneath before you put this, so enough of a piece that it would stick out a little bit. But anyway, let me move this over, and I will show you these adorable cards again. You can add your inside panel. So you definitely want to let that dry, but really, really cute. Super easy card to create. And you can't go wrong if you do your scoring of your gatefold card this way, because pretty much no matter what you do, as long as you score one and fold into the other, you will never have an overlap or underlap again. It'll always turn out to be perfectly in the middle, which is really, really fun, especially if you are very frustrated by making cards that have gatefolds, because they can be a little intimidating sometimes. Ooh, let me go from the bottom. Sometimes that works just a little bit better. There you go. Just a little bit snug, but thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, I would love to hear what you have to say. Leave me a comment here on YouTube. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe and then turn on the bell so when I make new videos, you will be alerted. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so very much for watching. Take care.